For 6 months, Emily believed her husband was secretly wasting their money. She finally asked for a divorce, until he opened their bank account and showed her where every dollar had gone. Emily slammed the bank statement onto the kitchen table. "Where is all our money going?" Her husband, Daniel, didn't answer. For months, Emily had watched their savings disappear. They had been married for 8 years. They weren't rich, but they had always been careful with money. They had promised each other that one day they would buy their own house. But suddenly, thousands of dollars were disappearing every month, and Daniel wouldn't explain. Emily had asked him again and again. Every time, he gave her the same answer: "Trust me." But trust becomes difficult when the numbers don't make sense. That night, Emily looked at him and said something she had never imagined saying: "I want a divorce." Daniel stared at her. Then he quietly asked, "Are you sure?" Emily nodded. "I don't know who you are anymore." The next few weeks were cold. They still lived in the same house, but they barely spoke. Emily slept in the guest room. Daniel left early every morning and returned late at night. Sometimes Emily heard him making phone calls in the hallway. Whenever she walked in, he would stop talking. That only made things worse. One evening, Emily's best friend told her, "You can't stay married to someone who hides everything from you." Emily knew she was right. She contacted a lawyer. The divorce papers were prepared. All she needed was Daniel's signature. But there was one thing Emily couldn't understand. If Daniel was hiding something so terrible, why did he still behave exactly like the husband she had married? He still filled her car with gas. He still left medicine beside her bed when she was sick. And every morning, he still made her coffee. One Friday evening, Emily placed the divorce papers on the table, signed them. Daniel looked at the papers. Then he looked at Emily. "I will." Emily was surprised. "No argument?" Daniel shook his head. "No." Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. "I just want you to see something first." He opened their banking app. Emily stared at the screen. Their savings account balance was almost empty. She felt her anger return. "Exactly. You spent everything." Daniel shook his head. "No." He opened the transaction history. Emily began reading. One payment, then another, then another. Her expression slowly changed. The money wasn't going to gambling. It wasn't going to another woman. It wasn't going to luxury cars or vacations. Every payment had gone to the same place: a hospital. Emily looked at Daniel. "What is this?" Daniel didn't answer immediately. Then he said, "Your mother." Emily froze. Her mother had been struggling with medical bills for months. Emily knew her family was having financial problems, but she didn't know the hospital bills had become that serious. Daniel continued, "She didn't want you to know." Emily stared at him. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because she made me promise." Emily couldn't speak. Daniel explained that her mother had asked him not to tell Emily, because she knew Emily would panic. So Daniel started paying the bills himself. At first, it was a few $100s, then thousands. Eventually, he started using their savings. Emily whispered, "Why didn't you ask me?" Daniel looked down. "Because I knew you'd choose your mother over everything." Emily's eyes filled with tears. Daniel continued, "And I knew you'd blame yourself for not being able to save her." Emily sat down. She felt ashamed. But there was still something she didn't understand. "You spent almost all of our savings." Daniel nodded. "I know. You could have told me. I should have." "Then why didn't you?" Daniel finally looked directly at her. "Because I thought I was protecting you." Emily began crying. Daniel walked to a drawer and pulled out another folder. He placed it on the table. Inside were receipts, hospital payments, medication, medical consultations. Everything had been documented. But then Emily noticed something strange. There were also several payments to a real estate company. She looked at Daniel. "What are these?" Daniel took a breath. "I sold my car." Emily stared at him. "And I put the money toward the house we wanted." She looked confused. "What house?" Daniel smiled sadly. "The little house we kept talking about." He had been trying to rebuild their savings by himself. He had sold his car, stopped eating lunch at work, canceled his gym membership, stopped buying almost everything he enjoyed, all while pretending everything was normal. Emily couldn't stop crying. "I thought you were destroying our future." Daniel replied, I thought I was protecting it. She looked at the divorce papers, then back at him. Why didn't you tell me? Daniel's eyes became watery. Because I was scared. Scared of what? That you'd look at me and see a man who couldn't provide for his family. Emily shook her head. You should have trusted me. Daniel nodded. I know. For the first time in months, they sat together without arguing. Emily took his hand, but there was one more surprise. Daniel opened his phone again. He showed her a message from the hospital. Her mother's treatment had worked. She was recovering. Emily covered her face and cried. Daniel simply held her. The next morning, Emily woke up early. She walked into the kitchen. The divorce papers were still sitting on the table. She picked them up. Daniel walked into the room. He didn't say anything. Emily slowly tore the papers in half. Then again. Daniel stared at her. Emily smiled through her tears. I don't want a divorce. Daniel asked. Why? She answered. Because I finally realized something. She placed her hand on his. Marriage isn't about protecting each other from every problem. She paused. It's about facing the problems together. Daniel smiled. 6 months later, Emily's mother was recovering. Emily and Daniel were still saving for their house, but this time, they did it together. No secret accounts, no hidden sacrifices, no pretending everything was okay. One evening, Emily looked at Daniel and said, You know what I learned? Daniel smiled. What? Sometimes the person you think is destroying your future. She squeezed his hand, is actually fighting the hardest to protect it. Daniel laughed. Emily leaned against his shoulder, and for the first time in months, they both understood something simple. A strong marriage isn't one without problems. It's one where two people stop fighting each other and start fighting the problem together.